Hello, friends. This is your director, Beth. This is a re-recording of this Sunday service. We were not able to record it at the time, so please enjoy. We are doing our band book back to school service today. And again, my name is Beth Anz. I use she, her pronouns. My visual ID is I'm a middle-aged woman. I have my hair pulled back. I'm wearing a pink shirt, and I'm wearing a gray sweater. So, well, folks, we're back again. This is another year of our band book story time. Brought to you by our Little Free Library and the Foundation 451, which provides access to banned books for school-age children. We're part of a network of locations in Brevard County that helps people, and especially kids, have access to these books. And we want everyone to be able to read stories that they can identify with and to learn about the stories of others. So we're here today not only to talk about banned books, but more importantly, we are here to celebrate the diverse and imaginative stories and authors who create those books. And this year, we are expanding beyond the school district to see how censorship comes in many forms. Now, I use several informational sources for this story, including NPR and PEN America. PEN America defines a school book ban as any action taken against a book based on its content that leads to a previously accessible book being either completely removed from availability to students or where access to a book is restricted or diminished. Now, we have highlighted banned and challenged books annually for the last 2 years. We've covered a lot. So here are some of the highlights that you may have missed. Our first year that we did our banned book service was in 2024, and we read Hair Love by Matthew A. Cherry, which is a story of a dad and his daughter and how they learned together to do her natural hair, which Azuri says has a mind of its own. While it's not usually banned, it is avoided because it can start a conversation about race through differences in types of hair. And by PEN America's definition, if the content is not allowed, the book is essentially banned. The second book we featured in 2024 was And Tango Makes Three by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell. And now this is the story of two male penguins at the Central Zoo who adopt Tango and raise him from an egg. It's based on a true story, and it's one of the most consistently banned books in the country simply because it portrays two parents of the same sex. In 2025, we read two more books. The first banned book was I Am Jazz by Jazz Jennings and Jessica Herschel. This is the story of a transgender child based on the real-life experiences of Jazz Jennings. This book is often banned for many of the same reasons listed above, often citing discomfort with the story of a transgender child, stating it is against people's beliefs or that the book is not appropriate for young children. The second book we read was The 1619 Project, the children's version, Born on the Water, by Nicole Hannah-Jones and Renee Watson. It, of course, stems from the greater 1619 Project. Both of those books are often targeted because they discuss the history of slavery in this country and the discomfort that that can cause. Now, race, along with gender and sexuality, are the common reasons books are removed. So this year we're going beyond the classroom to discuss censorship beyond the school board. This year's book is Love in the Library, which is a 2022 children's book by Maggie Tokuda-Hall and is illustrated by Yaz Imahura. As a more recent book, I could not find any school districts that have restricted or banned this book. But in 2023, Scholastic attempted to censor it, which is why we are discussing it today. Tokuda-Hall did write a young adult fantasy novel that has been banned in several school districts. It's called The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea. It was published in 2020. It has a gender-fluid pirate named Flora, who passes as Florian, and a high-born lady named Evelyn Hasegawa, who fall in love aboard a pirate ship. Now, challenges and removals by school boards primarily target its LGBTQ plus content, specifically its gender-fluid protagonist and the lesbian romance, as well as magical elements, witchcraft, and depictions of graphic violence. In Florida specifically, it was removed in the Clay County School District in 2023 after a Moms for Liberty group had it placed on a restricted list along with hundreds of others. Their strategy is to use standard forms, and from that they flood the district with books, so many books that they're set aside to be reviewed and removed from circulation without a formal review. And that's an example of what we traditionally think of as a book ban, but there are more subtle ways that people restrict content. In an example of soft censorship, Scholastic offered to license Love in the Library for their school libraries and book fairs, but only if the author removed any mention of racism from her author's note at the back, specifically the phrase, the deeply American tradition of racism. Now, ironically, they were planning to feature her book in its Rising Voices library, a collection meant to highlight underrepresented stories. This book is a love story set in World War II in an incarceration camp for Japanese Americans, and is inspired by her own grandparents about the improbable joy found, quote, in a place built to make people feel like they weren't human. This was at a time when the U.S. government forcibly relocated more than 120,000 Japanese Americans to dozens of internment sites from 1942 to 1945. So putting the story in the context of racism is absolutely essential to fully understanding the story. Scholastic said the current politically sensitive moment was their concern, and worried that teachers would not be comfortable with it in their classrooms. Author Tokuda-Hall not only gave a hard no for what she called a horrific demand for censorship, she posted a refusal to her public website, and in her words stated, "When you omit the word racism from a story about mass incarceration of a single group of people based on their race, there's no compromise to be had with that. And if you can't agree on basic facts without its proper content," she said, "the story runs the risk of just being a lovely little story, and that's not what it is. To pretend otherwise would be a disservice not just to my grandparents, but also to the 120,000 other people who were incarcerated at the time." So as a result, Scholastic issued an apology and promised to listen and hear the concerns of its Rising Voices authors and educators from these communities. Scholastic did offer to feature the book with the note unchanged, but the author, as of now, has not yet accepted that offer. But as a result, she helped found the organization Authors Against Book Bans in 2022. That is a national coalition of writers who work together to protect the freedom to read. They support librarians and educators, speak out against book bans, and help communities keep diverse stories on the shelves. The group mobilizes authors to attend school board meetings, write letters, and advocate for policies that defend access to books. They also partner with major free speech organizations to challenge censorship and ensure students can read stories that reflect a wide range of experience and identities. We see with this example that censorship goes beyond banning a book. In the state of Florida, we have laws like HB 7, or the Stop Woke Act, and HB 1557, also known as the Don't Say Gay Act. Although some aspects of these laws have been clarified or rolled back, they still create an environment of uncertainty, and many teachers steer clear of topics involving race, racism, gender, or orientation, simply because the boundaries are unclear. So we are here today to uplift and celebrate these voices. So let's start by telling the story of love in the library, and we're going to include the author's note at the end. This book is recommended for ages 6 to 9, but it can be appreciated by all ages. So let's read and learn more about their story. This is the story, Love in the Library, by Maggie Tokuda-Hall, illustrated by Yaz Imahura. You can see the first page of the camp. Tama did not like the desert. She brushed the dust from her eyes as she walked to the library. The barbed wire fences and guards towers cast long shadows over her path. She always did her best not to look at the guards. Tama had taken the job in the library because she liked books. She didn't know how to be a librarian, but that didn't matter. In the camps, people did the jobs that needed doing, and that was that. "Good morning, Tama," a voice boomed. It was George. Like every other day, George was waiting at the door for Tama with a stack of books that he had checked out only the day before. "Good morning, George," Tama replied. He waited for her to unlock the library and then followed her inside. Tama and George had been in Minidoka for a year already. She should have graduated college the previous summer, but instead Tama was here. All the Japanese Americans from the West Coast were in prison camps like Minidoka. Elderly people, children, babies, it didn't matter who you were or what you were, and being Japanese American then was treated like a crime. And though each camp was different, they were all the same, uncomfortable and unjust. In the summer, it was brutally hot. In the winter, it was brutally cold. Rain in the fall and spring left mud around the latrines they all needed to use. When the family shared single rooms, no one had any privacy. Tama did not know when she would leave Minidoka, if she ever would, but there was nothing to be done about that. So she worked in the library and watched as each day passed her by. Some days, many people would come to the library and borrow something to read. Other days, especially when it snowed, hardly anyone would brave the cold just for a book. But most days were the same. Tama kept her eyes down and tried not to think about the life she used to have. There is a word that described this, Tama knew. Constant. Constant questions, constant worries, constant fear. But then there was also George. George and his big smile were constant. And the books were constant company, which was nice. Tama loved books. Caught in their pages were worlds bursting with color and light and love and fairness. Pressed between their covers were words that planted seeds in the garden of Tama's mind. How magical that, even in Minidoka, such a small little library could fit so much inside of its four walls. Tama kept a word for that too, that's so close to her heart. Miraculous, she said. What was that? Asked George. His voice was so big it barely fit in the library. Tama blushed. Then she held up her finger to remind him of the rules. They were in a library, after all. George just went on grinning at her. Tama wanted to smile back. She tried to focus on the things that made her smile. The boys outside hollering and cheering as they played baseball, the books themselves and the smell of their pages. But she could not make herself smile. She sighed. What's wrong? George asked. Nothing, or everything, Tama said. She didn't need to tell him what she meant. He knew. Everyone in Minidoka knew. I try not to complain. I know this isn't fair, but I also know there's nothing that can be done. Nothing to, I try not to be afraid, but I'm just so, but she could not think of a word that was right. She was scared and sad and confused and frustrated and lonely and hopeful. Maybe there was no word that fit. Maybe for the first time in her life, there were no single words she could hold up in her heart to help her understand. And that thought was so sad to Tama, so upsetting, that she felt the hot prickle of tears behind her eyes. Hey, George said, and for once his voice was small and soft. There is a word for that, you know. There is? Hope bubbled big and bold in Tama's heart. Human, George said. He smiled his big smile, and Tama smiled back. She wiped her eyes. She held the word close to her heart and felt less alone than she had only a moment before. You can't possibly be reading all those books you check out, she said. No, he replied. Do you see how long they are? I'm only human, you know. So then why come every day? She laughed, but George was not laughing. And then for the first time she saw him, really saw George, and saw what he held close to his heart. It was her, Tama. They were married, Tama and George, and their first son was born in Minidoka. They hoped for the best. Their love for their family they made was constant, even if the injustice that their family was created within was constant too. To fall in love is already a gift, but to fall in love in a place like Minidoka, a place built to make people feel like they weren't human, that was miraculous. That was humans doing what humans do best. The miracle is us, Tama wrote in her journal. And as long as we believe in beauty, as long as we believe in change, in beauty, in hope, That miracle is hard to find sometimes, but it is in all of us. And here's the author's note. This is a true story, mostly. George and Tama are my maternal grandparents. They have 5 children, including my mother. They truly did meet at Minidoka, a Japanese incarceration camp in Idaho. Tama was the camp librarian. Their first son, Floyd, was born there, but the dialogue is imagined, save for one line. The miracle is in all of us. Those are Tama's exact words taken from her journal. After the nation of Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which caused citizens of Japanese ancestry on the West Coast to be relocated. This was tidy language used to abdicate the truth that American citizens were to be wrongfully imprisoned for the crime of being Japanese. The 120,000 Japanese Americans who were incarcerated lost their jobs, their homes, their educations, and their possessions. They had to go on short notice to relocation centers and then incarceration camps with only what they could carry. Family heirlooms, cherished belongings, pets, so much was left behind by necessity. They might need food, tools, clothes. They didn't know. They weren't told, and so they left their lives behind. Robbed of their rights and their dignity, the Americans who found themselves in squalor and destitution made the best of the lives that they could in the camps. And that to me is the great wonder of this story. That even under those circumstances, that terrible injustice, George and Tama found love. This is not to say that it was worth it. The improbable joy does not excuse the virulent racism, nor does it minimize that pain, that trauma, and the deaths that resulted from it. But it is to situate it into the deeply American tradition of racism. As much as I would hope that this is a story of a distant past, it is not. It is very much the story of the America here and now. The racism that put my grandparents into Minidoka is the same hate that keeps children in cages on our border. It is the myth of white supremacy that brought slavery to our past and allows the police to murder Black people in our present. It is the same fear that brings Muslim bans. It is the same contempt that creates voter suppression, medical apartheid, and food deserts. The same cruelty that carved reservations out of stolen sovereign land and that paved the Trail of Tears. Hate is not a virus. It is an American tradition. And yet there are so many of us that find improbable joy. Our capacious hearts find the love that our nation has denied us, just as Tam and George did, in the face of all that hate. Though it is always easier to destroy than to build, reminding ourselves of stories like Tam and George's reminds me to hope, to let my heart seek out the beauty and peace of the marginalized miraculously create for themselves, to let myself imagine a future where love is not improbable, but easy, to force myself to fight for that future. Because if we can fall in love, if we can find our joy, we can find that miracle despite all the truths, what else can we do? And thank you to the author, Maggie Tokuda-Hall. So what can we do? First, we can keep access for everyone. We can help to inform others about banned books and the importance of having access to diverse stories. We can support people providing access to those books, like Foundation 451, who has a network of libraries at churches and local shops. And you can ask your local bookstores and libraries to stock and feature these stories. You can build a little free library in your yard or a place of business and stock it with a variety of books. You can attend board meetings. You can sign up to speak and share information online. You can support advocacy groups like Authors Against Book Bans, PEN America, Little Free Library, and many others. And you can vote and support those who support access to books. We here at UUCB believe in the mission of the Little Free Library, which is to build community by inspiring readers and expanding book access around the world. And the mission of our partner, Foundation 451, is to get banned and challenged books directly into the hands of students, to heighten awareness of the needs for plurality of ideas, and to build society that truly honors freedom, justice, and inclusivity. Remember to share those voices you've heard today. Help us to create spaces where we can learn about one another, stretch beyond our comfort zones, and read banned books together. Thank you very much.